In this episode,
the only way I could watch this movie was to buy it via streaming on Amazon for $15. My wife's like, just do it. She goes, Chad invited you on the show. You should just do it. And I'm like, all right.
Good wife.
The day after, I go to Redbox to get something, and there it is for $1.70.
Oh, no.
Blu-ray.
Oh, man.
I'm standing outside an Acme supermarket in front of Redbox, and I just go loud enough for anyone to hear me. Fucking Lutsky.
Welcome. You're listening to Paleo Cheese Podcast, episode 25, part 2. Black Christmas versus Black Christmas.
So welcome back to part 2 of landmark episode 25, our special Christmas episode with Monster Men, Jack Campisi and Hunter Shea.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to talk about, we're pitting two films against each other, an original versus a remake. And so
remake.
Yeah. But so we'll talk about the original first, from 1974. One of the, I guess, I don't know, arguably original slasher.
One of the
first. Argue that.
First American slasher, I think. You might, if you discount Psycho, it's the first American slasher.
There's a movie called The Peeping Tom that's also considered a
Peeping
slasher.
Tom
one.
too, yeah.
But it's about a guy who breaks into a sorority house full of girls and kills them one by one in between some of the most disturbing prank calls that you've ever heard.
Yeah.
It was directed by Bob Clark, who also did A Christmas Story, one of the best Christmas movies ever.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, there's a trend there.
Yeah.
It was written by Roy Moore and stars Margot Kidder and John Saxon, and among other people.
I didn't
But
know it was
the,
written by that Ten Commandments judge dude from Alabama.
Roy Moore.
Little known fact.
Yeah, little known fact.
The more you know.
Yeah, the more you know, guys. Yeah.
So it also stars Gene Shalit at the beginning there. Just kidding. There's the guy there, the couch man.
Yeah, I
guy with
understand what you mean there.
I didn't see this movie until last year for the very first time, and
Get
it was
out of here.
serious. It was because the title. I'm just not I thought this was going to be some kind of like.
I thought it was a
Silent
Tyler Perry movie.
Night.
You went there. I was going to, and I'm like, I'll let you.
I was going to say Wayans Brothers.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Medea Saves Christmas.
No, I thought it was going to be like just just some overrated like Silent Night, Deadly Night type of killer Santa Claus thing. I had no idea, and so when I saw it last year, I was pleasantly surprised and watched it again yesterday to prepare for this, and I freaking love this movie. I love it. It's one of my favorite slashers. I know that part of the reason why I like it is growing up in the 70s. It's just got that nostalgic feel, the decor, that staircase, the carpeting, and just all that stuff. It's
a grainy look to it.
Yeah. And so, but not only that, it's not just this. I mean, the guy is already in the house, and he's in the house the whole time. He's not hiding in the bushes outside. He's not wandering around in woods and where people are going to jump into him. He's already there, and he stays there. And I love that.
He's a guy. He's not supernatural.
Yeah.
There's nothing extra about him except he's freaking nuts.
Whacked out, yeah. But I love the idea that we all know he's up there and he's sneaking down and taking people out. They don't even know, that these people are dying. They got legitimate excuses for not worrying about most of them, like, hey, are you sleeping in there? Or what's her name took off to, on vacation or on their, Christmas break or whatever. So I just love it, man. And I was really shocked. This is 74, not to say that they didn't get raunchy back then. I mean, Exorcist was 73, and that got about as raunchy as you can get. But the phone call, I was shocked.
In the beginning, it's like the first phone call. There are words bandied about that you don't hear even now very often.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I realized really quickly I wasn't watching Blue's Clues. I was like, this is definitely this is not. Yeah.
Yeah,
But the movie, you know, it's kind of an interesting thing because, you know, it's not a skin flick. You know, it doesn't have a lot of the staples that you have in a lot of the horror, especially from that time. You know, you just don't have it. But then it makes up for it by saying, okay, yeah, we're not going to show a bunch of skin, but we are going to have a really crazy, intense, sicko guy on a phone saying some messed up junk within like the first 5 minutes.
Well, you know, a lot of the slasher tropes and rules hadn't been made yet because you talk about Psycho and Peeping Tom, and Alice, Sweet Alice, I think was before this too. And
the Brooke Shields one.
Yeah, I think that's before that or right around this time.
Around that time, yeah, I think so.
So it wasn't really Halloween. It's kind of like where that, you know, the guy who keeps getting up and the babysitter and all that stuff really came in. To
if you're having sex, you're dead.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Yeah.
True.
No, in fact, this movie does it all without any nudity or really blood.
Yeah,
there's not much blood until
straight up atmosphere is what it's about.
Yeah, there's a little blood, but I think that cop gets his. That's kind of gory for the film for the time. But
the Margot Kidder murder is kind of giallo like.
Yeah.
But there is blood. But there is blood on that one. I thought
it's very colorful and artistic.
By the way, Margot Kidder as Barb is one of the greatest characters in horror movie history. History.
She was great.
Every time she comes on the screen, I am riveted, and I just hang on every word because the drunk sorority girl, but a bitch. Oh, she's such a bitch. She's awesome.
She carried that edge into Lois Lane. Lois Lane had an edge to her. She smoked and she was a wise ass.
Yeah. And you had Olivia Hussey, who, let me tell you something. If we had a girl with that accent who looked like that in my college, Keir DeLay, who was from 2001: A Space Odyssey, would have been chucked. We would have beat the tar out of him to get our chance. Because, good God.
I also really like the house mother or whatever you want to call her, the one that's hiding the bottles all over. She was great.
Amazing. And she was the release valve throughout the entire thing because it's a tense movie because you know he's up there and you don't know who he is, why he's there. Those calls are terrifying. So to have that release valve of a little comedic injection every now and then, and she was great.
Yeah.
I was just waiting, you know, I was excited, in fact, to see John Saxon, you know, because I like Bruce Lee. I like Bruce Lee movies. And so I remembered it from there, and I was just waiting for him to do some kung fu junk, dude, and it never happened. I was like, man, it really bummed me out. But I was like,
John Saxon is a legend with us, the Monster Men. He's been he's one of the great character actors. He was the original fembot guy from the $6 Million Man. He was the father of Nightmare on Elm Street. He's been in so many things. And when I was in high school, we had like, if John Saxon showed up in a movie, or we would actually go hunt down John Saxon movies. There was like several character actors. Christopher George was another. So there's several.
Richard Jekyll.
Yeah.
Yeah, John Saxon was the man. And if you want to see him in a comedy, he's in a Jimmy Stewart movie called Mr. Hobbs Takes a Vacation, where he plays his professor son-in-law who's probably cheating on his wife. But he wears a Nutcracker Speedo in like 1962 on the beach, and it is delicious.
Jeremiah, what'd you think of the movie? I want to know what
did I think of the movie?
Yeah.
I liked the movie a lot, man. And, you know, I was a little rankled, you know, on a personal level. People know I've said it before, you know, I'm a Catholic-y dude. By Catholic, I mean like very. And so like the thing to do with abortion, it was risky business, man. I remember I texted you and I was like, dude, bro, I'm like, what is this? What am I watching? But at the end, by the end of it, am I allowed to say my feelings about the end? Because that really is a big deal, like the way that I viewed the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about spoilers or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been out for at least a minute or two. But you know, the thing is like, for a minute. But by the end, I thought, and I said, you know, to have this crazy twist at the end, the way that they played it, where you really are, as you're watching it, no matter where you are on that spectrum of political and cultural or religious belief, you're upset about something to do with this scenario, right? Whether you're on one side or the other, doesn't matter. but the idea, it makes it believable. The suspended disbelief is in full, it's just full blown overdrive at this point, that boyfriend dude is the guy. Like that guy, something's messed up about this dude. That dude is the guy that's calling, and something's whacked out about him. And then for the twist at the end to be that not only is homeboy dead, but that ain't the freaking guy.
Yeah.
Like, I said, there's very few things that a writer could have used at their disposal that would drum up that feeling to get you so involved in that situation and to be willing to believe that way about a character as abortion. I thought, so it's from an artistic perspective, I said it was a genius maneuver, right? It was a genius maneuver because suspended disbelief, and all of a sudden you're in it, right? No matter where you are, you're in it. You're ticked off. You're thinking this guy, something's wrong with him, man. He's, out of his mind. He's the dude calling, doing, I'm Billy, all that crap on the phone. And you're like, and to have the way they did it, where he was upstairs and, coming down, what are you doing here? It was awesome. And I loved the feel. I agree with you totally, man. Like, and I hadn't seen it. I know Hunter just laughed. He's like, you haven't seen it, man? And like, you didn't see it till like way late. And I'm like, dude, I saw it last night.
Well, you're new to this. Like, Chad's written for like Famous Monsters.
I've got no excuse.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm the newbie, man. I'm the guy that's learning all this stuff. But I agree with you when you say the feel, right? When you see it, the camera, the cinematography, the decor, all of this stuff, the style, even the way that the police were, the cops, right, at the station, even tracking the call, right, and tapping the phone, and the guy running through all of these rows trying to find out where it's from. And I'm like, dude, it's way different now. Or when they did the search party, and he's like, if anything happens, you have to connect with us somehow. And I just made a joke, but I was sitting there and I said, well, what's your cell phone number? like that wasn't there. And they didn't have to pretend, because it was at the time, but it was just so, it seemed like it really embodied so much of that time without like having to emphasize anything about it. It was just so, it was authentic, to the time. It was true to the time. And I really enjoyed it. And I have a lot of good things to say about it. And again, I agree also with your statement about Margaret Kidder. She was amazing, and that was one of the bummers, actually, was that she was the emphasis through the first half of the movie. Like, she wasn't the main character, but it gave you the idea that she was the main character. Then halfway through the film, there's kind of a flip of the script a little bit. And I don't understand that entirely.
Well, in a way, she was almost too rough and too honest to be the final girl. Like, Olivia Hussey embodied a bit of purity in just the way she looked. But just remember, Roe v. Wade was decided in 1973 when they were filming this, because this came out the next year. So that they were tackling the abortion thing. And I wonder if at the time, I'm sure a lot of people saw her as the enemy, as the bitch who should die.
Especially
for her
because
choosing to have abortion.
Cross. She was wearing a cross around her neck.
Yes.
So she's not just going to go get an abortion and not wanting to get married and saying all these things. I can imagine it was rising up in me, man. I was a little bit mad. I'm like, come on, man. Like, what the hell?
Did you blow your piano recital when you watched this?
What's that?
Did you blow your piano recital when you watched it?
I did, man. I blew it totally, man. I was,
So, hey, Pope Jeremiah, how come you're not mad at that guy for having premarital sex with her?
Believe me, I was. The whole situation.
Now you're just retracting.
The situation rankled me. But if people are burning with desire and they're doing the thing and find themselves in a precarious situation,
as long as they're using the rhythm method, it's all right.
Natural family planning, right? And
missionary positions, okay.
And so that's fake news. That's not real.
I'm just kidding.
That's not real.
Really.
There may be some puritanicals, but the thing is, but the whole, that's why I said the whole situation. I said, no matter which side of the spectrum you're on, the situation itself is a little bit, it's upsetting. Like, and I thought it could easily be upsetting that people on one side could say they're mad at this, and another side saying I'm mad at that guy. But no matter what, people are mad. and they're honed in on this and thinking something screwed up, and that it's a perfect environment for that trick, and the trick being that it's him and it's not that weirdo up in the attic, right? And that he is the weirdo, but he's not, which makes it a perfect.
I have a theory about the remake that I have to, I think, mention now because we're talking about this abortion part of it. My theory is that the writer director of the remake saw the scene where that guy's like, you can't make that decision. You didn't even like ask me first. And then that chick who wrote the one's like, oh hell no, I'm making a movie that's like almost like I felt like that was almost a catalyst for it, because what he said was like the most, like if you were a feminist, like a hardcore feminist, and you heard a guy saying something, I can't remember his exact words.
He said, we'll see.
Well, he was like,
kind of thing.
Yeah, but when she's like, I'm pregnant. She's like, but I'm having an abortion. He's like, you can't do that. Like, like you didn't consult me first. You didn't ask me to see what I have to say about it when this is her body, kind of thing. And they're not married or anything. But I could see that being because, and I don't want to get too into this because it's the only thing that makes sense to me why you would take something and try to just turn it into something that it's not, other than seeing that guy's behavior in that whole, you didn't ask me first if you could have an abortion, and having this feminists go, oh hell no. We're rewriting this.
Yeah.
Right. And we're going to rewrite it big time.
Yeah. It's like the remake was entirely premised on the opposition to that particular interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like that, just you could tell that rankled. You know what side of the spectrum that lady's on.
The remake is just a complete embodiment of all the whole crap going on right now.
I thought the remake did a nice job of subtly conveying that message.
Very subtle. Hang on, I don't want to get into that yet.
Yeah, no.
I have some really cool trivia that I learned. I had no idea.
Now, Olivia Hussey's been impregnated by this student who is probably a 17th year senior. Because Keir Delay is almost 40 when he shoots.
He was 38,
and looks every minute of his age.
Mm-hmm.
And but the first time I saw it, I'm like, oh, he must be a teacher. I'm like, he's a student? What?
Yeah.
Well, he's been living in the conservatory for 8 years.
It was weird.
Yeah.
That was a weird relationship. And I was like, but like I'm saying, we're seeing it, like I saw it first in the 80s, and you guys have seen it now in the aughts. And I'm sure that it's a different feeling depending on when you saw it. I'm betting the 70s, this was just mind blowing, and probably like going, put this shit in a grindhouse and don't let anyone watch this movie.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, I was just, to me, that would be in college. I just remember any girl that was dating a guy that was over 24. We were like, what the hell are you doing, man?
Yeah.
And so I appreciated the fact that she was like, yeah, you're obviously older than me and you probably think you know more than me, but F you, this is what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I'm a pro-life guy. It's easy to be pro-life once you've had kids, by the way. I stand firm on this, because when I didn't have kids and I was with my girlfriend, I was very, hey, make your own choice. And then once I had kids, I was like, yeah, I'm pro-life. And I grew up, I was an altar boy for 5 years, and I was a good Catholic boy and everything. But I also,
you dropped Padre Pio in the last episode, and I'm like,
Padre
dude, that's an obscure. Well, for people into horror, they may be like, who's Padre Pio? And I'm like, I got your number, man. I know Hunter.
Yeah, you know Padre Pio.
I know Padre Pio, bro. Stigmata, bro.
I inherited a car from my grandmother, and it had a Padre Pio sticker on it.
Oh, yeah. Grandma was. Oh well, yeah. You're Italian.
Yeah, so we called my white Camry the Pope Mobile.
Oh, yeah.
I put a dome on that.
Yeah.
Jack, you like this movie, right? What are your,
I liked it. So I saw this movie back in the 80s, I guess. It was one of those video store rentals. Mm-hmm. It was one of the few Christmas horror movies that was out there. And I thought it was much better than like Silent Night, Deadly Night, and things like that. Yeah. But I didn't appreciate it as much till I got older, because I didn't realize this came out before Halloween. So I thought it was just another one in the wake of I didn't realize that this one. And then when I found out the guy who did A Christmas Story did this too, that blew my mind. So I learned to appreciate it more. And also, like, when I saw this as a teenager or whatever, the abortion stuff I could care less about. I was waiting for the next kill.
Yeah.
And it was just,
or
that
for
was
a
just
girl to take a shower.
Yeah. But I saw that as it's a topic that makes somebody fanatical. And so he's acting extreme, and that makes him a nice suspect and a red herring.
Yeah.
In the movie. And it's a great topic because that topic evokes emotion, because the term pro-life and pro-choice makes the thing too black and white. Because it's not like one side believes in killing babies and one side doesn't. There's layers to all of it, and it's the hardest conversation to have without people pissing each other off and wonder. But there's layers to it. So it does. People are blowing up abortion clinics, and people are doing all kinds of things. So it is a topic that creates fanaticism. And Hunter's right. This came out right after Roe v. Wade, so it was a different atmosphere. So all that stuff aside, because as a kid watching a horror movie, I could care less about that stuff. And now I can look back and be like, oh, there's implications here. For me, I was like, oh, Lois Lane was in a horror movie and John Saxon's in this. Woohoo.
Yeah.
There's a horror comedy called Student Bodies from the 80s.
Yeah, I remember that.
That has the heavy breathing. And whenever I watch this, I'm like, oh man, Student Bodies was channeling this so much. So I just think it's one of the best, if not the best, Christmas horror movie.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot. I don't have it up on a super pedestal where I watch it every year. I have to go back and watch it every so often. If Hunter says, hey, let's watch this for Monster Man, absolutely. No hesitation. I like going back to it, but it's not like Return of the Living Dead where I got to watch it every year. So I really like the movie. I think there's a lot of fun with it. I don't think it's the best horror movie ever, but it's such a great little piece of history, and there's so much interesting stuff going on in it.
Wow.
I was gonna say, man, there was a couple more things that I was thinking, and as you were talking, you know, like I like how it has that element of it where he's in the house the whole time.
Yeah.
And that they don't know. You know, it's one thing it's creepy enough, for example, to look out, you know, I see a movie where the person's looking out the window and there's some weirdo across the street, you know, with a glistening knife staring at you. That's really creepy. But just the idea, you know, it might make you want to check out your window. You know, and be like looking over there, what is that by the bush over there? Kind of thing. But then to think about this, you're like wondering what's behind the curtain, or maybe in the closet, or around the other side of the desk. Like,
well, years later, When a Stranger Calls comes out, blows everybody's mind. My sister was a babysitter, went and saw the movie, came home, was terrified. And then you look back and you're like, they totally ripped this movie
they ripped it off.
Yeah.
I was just telling my friend Jack, my friend Norm, who comes with us, that he was watching. He just got Shudder, I think. He was watching When a Stranger Calls, and I'm like, you know, that was totally ripped off from Black Christmas. And I'm only saying this because I'm about to go on a podcast talking about Black Christmas.
And they got it was one of the first. I don't know if it was the first, but it was one of the first where it was the first person view. And so the idea that that kind of almost drunken feel of walking down the steps and
handheld
in the hand, the handheld, and that you're seeing from that person's perspective, like going down, and you start to see the people, but they're not seeing you. And to see that, and to see the hands as they're going down the ladder and stuff, and that the only thing you see of this person, you see hands, and because he holding the rope, and then you've got a scene where they show his eyeball, and that's it. And his eyeball is just, he's just looking through there, man, belly kind of thing. And it's like, oh my gosh, dude, what the heck? And it was funny when, you know, bringing up the thing about Christmas Story is when I first heard that, I'm like, are you serious? Chad told me, I'm like, dude, no, you know. But then I thought, and I said, well, wait a second. There's that scene, like there's creepiness in Christmas Story. There's the scene with, if you're a kid watching it, and most of us have when we were kids, you know, or whatever, seen it. The idea of him going up, Ralphie going up, and he sees the elves. And that scene where they're like right in his face, and it's that exactly, yes, man, ho ho ho, and it's like oh, no, like get me out of here, dude. This is nightmare land. And you know the way that is that first person angle in that movie from that perspective of the kid and that it's eerie, that it's not, that's an uncomfortable situation. They're messed up elves, you know, that whole situation, that whole group is messed up. So I thought that was good. The only thing, man, that I didn't like about the movie, other than what I felt was a weird shift from one main focus to another in the movie.
I agree with you on that a little bit.
That was a little, it was a little different for me.
Margaret Kidder is so much more likable in that movie than Olivia Hussey's a little annoying in that movie.
A little bit, yeah. It's like, and just the idea, but hot. I mean, look, it makes up for it, you know. I mean, she's easy to look at.
Yeah,
but
Margot Kidder, if you were dating her, would just sit there drinking, smoking, making fun of the size of your penis.
Yeah,
talking about watching turtles have sex for days at a zoo. I mean, say what in the world? But some of the dialogue, like where they're in the house, and it happened like 3 different times, where the person in the house was saying, you know, who's there? Who is that? Who is that? What are you? What's your name? Who are you? And it just repeated. And then the matron or whatever, the woman, the older woman. She's in the house and she's looking around and she's, I think, talking for the cat or whatever. I don't know if that's what it was.
Everyone's always looking for that cat.
Everybody's looking for the cat, man. And she's like, I want to get you here, you know, whatever. But she repeats that cat's name like 30 times, man.
Claude.
And it felt very like they didn't need to do that. Like but in overall, for me to say those are really the only criticisms, and maybe that, you know, it's, you needed to do this in order for the suspended disbelief and in order to have the twist. But the idea that the boyfriend, right, is peeking around the back and wiping the window in the basement or whatever, the frost, and doing that, and then breaking through a window and walking in, I'm like, that's not very believable. Like, it's like, maybe, you know, but it also plays into the idea that this dude's the killer.
If he wasn't 40, it's believable. Like anything is possible when you're 19, 20 years old.
Well, I heard something about this. I don't know if it was on a podcast or something, but they were saying we wanted to cast college students or make them college students, but he wanted people to take them more seriously. So he casted older people in the roles.
Yeah. I mean,
that's
which
like everybody ripped them off
too.
now. Yes. Yeah. Because like you know, you watch shows about high school and they're all like 23, 24 years old. And you're like, what?
Yeah,
I can tell you're not a, you know, 10th grader here.
They're changing it a little more now. You see more younger kids in age appropriate roles, but back then everyone was like,
Luke Perry
should be like doing my taxes.
Luke
not
Perry.
Luke Perry was 45 in 90210.
I know.
Yeah. Regarding the fact that When a Stranger Calls ripped off Black Christmas, on that movie's defense, with Black Christmas, we knew that the guy was in the house. We knew where the calls were coming from. And When a Stranger Calls, you don't know that they're coming from in the house. So it's still, even though I think it's word for word the same line. The calls are coming from inside the house.
Yeah,
it has a different type of impact. It's
plus
like
there's
we already know
involved, young children involved.
Yeah,
which
that you need to be checking.
Yeah,
a lot
to check the children.
You just spoiled it for me. I've never seen that movie. I hate all of you.
Sorry, it's a good movie too.
It's on my list, dude. I was gonna watch.
All right,
it
let's change the subject.
There's a whole
let's change
lot
the subject to The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
So you see,
what show?
I do have some trivia that I learned about this movie that blew my mind. Maybe you guys already know about it. I didn't know about it, but I guess John Carpenter was a huge fan of this movie, and asked Bob Clark, the director, if he planned to make a sequel. And Clark responded by saying that if he were to make a sequel, he would set a year after the events of Black Christmas, and then have the killer escape from a mental institution after being arrested between the films, and that he would call the film Halloween.
Get out of here.
Well, he said it would take place at Halloween.
Okay. And then Carpenter asked if he could write, well, you figure Black Christmas, and then maybe using another Halloween. So Carpenter asked if he could write the sequel, and Clark said, yeah, go ahead. But the script turned into a separate project and became Halloween. But it's like,
wow.
Yeah. Because that's the plot of, Escapes a Mental Institution, Halloween.
Well, I'm telling you, because Clark, I think this movie is flawless. I love this. This is one of my top 5 slasher movies, top 10 horror movies up there. It set the mold for everything that was to follow. And that's a perfect, you saying Carpenter called Bob Clark. And this was not my first Bob Clark movie. My first was Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. Which was
I just saw that recently for the first time, and I absolutely hated that movie.
Now, it's a movie I love, but it's because it was one of those when my dad would have, like, he'd be 18 Schaefer's and we'd go, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things coming on. You want to watch it? And I'd be like 5. Yeah, Dad, let's watch this. And like, we'd watch that, and he would tell me, like, how it was, a riff on George Romero, who I didn't know who the hell he was talking about. And so I just love that moment. I still love that movie. I think Shudder has great transfer of it too.
Nothing trumps the sentimentality of something like that or nostalgia. Nothing. So yeah.
I still like it. Look, I've met Alan Ormsby, who he was the troop director, the guy in charge, the head asshole, and I met him a couple.
If he wasn't in the movie, I may have liked it.
But it's funny because
I had the Bert and Ernie clothes on.
Oh, the outfits were great in that movie. It's a dirty movie, and everyone's an asshole in that movie.
Yes.
But I met Alan Ormsby, and I even I wrote a book, and I made the island called Ormsby Island. I mean, that's how much that movie has impacted me as I grew up. So I love that movie.
I'm wearing a
Christmas
Story shirt.
Yeah, man.
Look,
that's my Bob Clark movie.
This is the same man, Bob Clark, who would go on to do A Christmas Story, Porky's 2, and Baby Geniuses.
Really?
So So we're reading so much into this, and I guarantee you at the time I was like, I just had to make a goddamn movie.
Yeah.
I just had to do something. I just had to put it out there. Just like I'm sure, Chad, sometimes people tell you, I read your book and this is what I got out of it. And you're just probably thinking, I just had to get words down and I had to get this done. It's fascinating to just look into how people read into art.
Yeah.
So we could be talking this movie Blue Streak, and Bob Clark, who died in a car accident, is looking down going, you fools. I was really Porky's the one I thought about most. Or I'm really the Baby Geniuses guy.
Maybe because he didn't really, he did Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things is a pretty obscure movie these days. This movie is kind of a cult thing.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like Carpenter stayed with horror. Bob Clark's place in horror history should be more prominent than it is. He's a kind of a trailblazer.
Yeah. He went where the money was. He didn't get a lot of opportunities, which just drives me crazy. Remember Turk 182, Jack? Remember that movie?
Gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got a weird resume. But what he did to the horror slasher genre, he doesn't get enough respect for that. And the fact that he made the 2 best Christmas movies of all time on totally different spectrums. It's amazing.
And an ending like that, and when I first saw it, the ending of this movie, I was still in suspended disbelief. I'm like, oh man, that guy's toast. You know what I mean? And all the people, they're wandering around the house and she's in the bed. And I thought, when they all left and they even turned the light off and stuff and left her there, and all of a sudden the place is really quiet and it stuck on her for a while. That's when it started creeping in the idea, I think I've just been hosed. I think that I've been duped and these cops are duped and something else is going to happen. And I didn't know what was going to happen. And I anticipated if there was going to be something, that it was going to be, he's going to pop up and he's going to kill her, walk in and close the door. And that's going to be the end. You're going to know. And I was blown away by the brilliance. I didn't think it was, the greatest idea that she's left there and everybody left. She's obviously traumatized. You're going to leave her in a house where a bunch of people.
There was one.
It's the worst
outside the front door.
So and there's a cop outside the front door.
Yeah. It's the worst police force in the history of police.
Ever.
Everyone's
yeah.
They just don't check the entire house.
Well, there's force.
Not as bad as the American Werewolf in London guy.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, a girl had died. So they're kind of spread out. They already didn't have, the morgue is overwhelmed. They already found a bunch of bodies, and so they're not. It's kind of believable that they wouldn't go, well, let's go see if there's more up in the attic. You know what I mean?
Her body's in the window at the end.
Yeah. Her body's at the window and the light is on. But see, that's the thing. And that's what made it to me the long lasting creepiness that is going to terrorize me for the rest of my life. that says that you have a situation on the outside. There's a cop at the front door. They'd gone through the house. The people are dead. They thought that she's thinking that she killed the bad guy, right? And she's thinking that's done. And she's laying down, quiet and asleep finally. And everybody's thinking that all the problem is on the outside, and on the inside, not only are there still dead bodies to be found, but there's that dude, and you don't see him, but the candle's still lit, and the light in the attic is still on, and yet everybody is oblivious to the wickedness that remains right there, that is looming, that any moment could just go down. And I thought that is a bazillion times creepier than if he walked in and you saw him and he went through the door. And I said, I'm so glad I only saw his hands and only saw his shadow and only saw that eye and heard the voice, and that's it. And I said, that is creepy. And that
because you don't know his motivations, you don't know who he is, why he's there, and that's scary. And then George W. comes by, says mission accomplished, and everyone and he's still hanging up there in the attic. He's like, thanks, George. Get him out of here.
And then at the very end, the phone is ringing and no one's picking it up. So it's like, is she dead now? You know?
Right.
That insinuates she is.
Times. Yeah.
Because the phone call always came after somebody died, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I love endings like that where you just kind of, gotta
that body with the plastic wrap over the face, that's so iconic.
It is.
Yeah.
It really
and
is.
you have Andrea Martin, who would go on to SCTV greatness, starring as one of the sorority girls.
Wow, SCTV.
Yeah. And she's the sorority mom in the second remake, which we're not going to talk about tonight. But she is in the second,
the 2006 remake one.
Yeah, 2006. But she's not like the Sherry Swilling woman who was in the first one.
The first remake, which I thought was bad, but after seeing the next one, I was like, oh, I wish we had watched the first remake.
So let's talk about that. But Jeremiah, I want to hear, and everybody, you want to do a letter grade? I want to do a letter grade rating rather than 1 to 5 stars, like an E to A plus.
A.
Yeah.
I don't give it an A plus because of the things that I've mentioned, but it's unquestionably something that will stick with you. You will be invested in it no matter where you are in your life. You're going to watch it. You're going to be offended. You're going to be creeped out. And it does things that, really make it stand out. In fact, it stands out for sometimes what it didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that is amazing. And it was creepy. And I checked in my house after it was over. I turned on the lights and I'm like looking around thinking, do I have some creeper in my house?
I'm the dude in the attic right now.
Yeah, you're the dude in the attic. I was looking for you, man.
You're Billy.
Like, where's
let me call somebody.
Yeah, I give it an A too. I mean, there was some issues like the guy, it's like, how did he even know that his girlfriend was in the basement? It's not it's like a Michigan basement. It does not look good down there. So why would you even know she's hanging out down there? And why in the world would you just smash through there?
I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah.
I love the movie so much. Well, I meant for.
Well, I'll tell you why. Hemingway, he always talked about, it's the things that you don't write.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they used to fuck. So that's how we knew to look for it down there. Just so you know. They don't say it, but it's implied. That's where they used to go
that's
back.
where they'd been down there before.
Yeah.
So he must have wanted a piece pretty bad.
Yeah, he's
it's like body heat. It's like body heat when he throws the chair through the window.
There you go. That's right. See?
Yeah. I love that movie. Okay. All right. So A. Hunter, Jack, what? Because can you toss it a letter grade?
I would also give it an A. Like I said, it's a great movie, but rewatchability, like I will watch Halloween over and over, like every year. I really like this movie a lot, but I don't. It's not quite at that level that I give it an A plus. But I have no problem somebody giving it because of its place in horror history.
Yeah.
So, and this A is nothing to sneeze at. So, I think it's a great movie.
So you have no problem with me. I give it an A plus because of what it did for the genre and what it is as a movie. And this is a movie I've watched 20 times, somewhere around there. It's nowhere near. It's funny. I've watched A Christmas Story. Somebody asked me what movie I watched the most in my life. I'm like, A Christmas Story.
Yeah, probably me too.
Maybe 100 times. Maybe 150.
See, the most I've ever watched a movie is maybe like, I think Evil Dead, maybe like 10 or 12 times.
Yeah.
Hunter once asked me how many times I've seen Jaws, and I can't count. Because not only do I own it and watch it, but every time it's on TV, I end up stopping. So like if you count when I just came in the middle and watched it to the end or whatever, I said, I don't know, 600 times. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. A whole lot.
A Christmas Story, at least once a year, every year.
Yeah.
We watch it at least 7 times between the start of December and Christmas Day, right there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, even if it's just in bits and pieces, right? Like a little bit here, a little bit there, and you're like, yeah, probably 7 times.
It was a box office flop when it came out. And we had a theater right down the block, and we went as a family when it came out and loved it and bought the VHS when it first came out, and nobody knew what the hell we were talking about.
We have home movies of me and like, I don't know if it's some blizzard, little me bundled up so much that I can't move.
Like Randy?
And I fell down and I couldn't get up. So the first time we saw that, my family lost our minds. We were like, oh, that's like our home movies. And there was just so much other stuff we could relate to that, I mean.
You might be talking about the blizzard. It was 76, wasn't it?
Yeah, it could have been.
That was crazy. That was crazy.
No, Jack, it was the Dust Bowl of 31.
Yeah.
For Jack.
All right. Let's, okay, so.
Things are going to take a turn, dude. You might. Do you want to cut it out right now? We could just stop. We don't have to do this.
This will be fun.
No, we have to.
Yeah.
We must, man.
Okay, so
all
right, now the fun begins.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Okay, Black Christmas 2019 remake. I use the term loosely, and only because we're forced to. It's a 90-minute PSA about the evils of white men and our universal desire to date, rape, and or kill girls who dare to think they're equals.
Yeah.
Also, people died toward the end. It's directed by Sophia Takal, written by Sophia, and starring Imogen Poots, who was the only good thing in the movie. I thought she did an amazing job. This is the first time I've seen it. I never would have watched this if it weren't for you guys letting me talk you into coming on here and talking about it.
This was your idea.
Yeah.
By the way, I just want to make this clear.
Yeah.
I love you, but I freaking hate you.
I don't blame you, man. I don't blame you. I've seen some really, really bad movies this year. Some of the worst movies. 2 of the worst movies I've ever seen in my whole life. One of which was one that Jack recommended on Final Guys. So I got a bone to pick with you about that.
Oh God, what movie is that?
2 of the worst movies. 3 of the worst movies I've seen ever in my life is this year. One was called Invasion of the Blood Farmers. One was called Deathbed, the Bed That Eats. Horrible. Hilariously bad, but horrible. And then the one that Jack, it wasn't something that you're like, hey, everyone has to see this. It's like, yeah, I'd recommend it. It's a movie called Found Footage.
That wasn't me.
Jason Brandt loves that.
Brandt loves that movie.
No, I think it was you.
I thought that movie was whatever.
It's okay.
It's like an hour long. And
it's okay.
Like if you're
it's torture porn. He hates torture porn.
I don't know.
Brandt loves it. First of all, Brandt, give me a freaking break.
Brandt?
I mean, Brandt.
Yeah, really. Can we just talk all
Brandt has,
how stupid he is?
But no, Found Footage. I was like, meh, whatever. Like
I hated it.
I don't think it's the worst movie in the whole world, but
no, I don't think it's the worst movie in the whole world. But it's one of the worst that I saw. The other 2 are 2 of the worst that I've ever seen. But what I'm getting at is I've seen a lot this year and bad movies, and Black Christmas is up there with them. Oh, yeah. But it's definitely the worst modern horror movie that I've seen.
Yeah.
I hate this movie.
Yeah.
I hate everything
with the passion of 1,000 burning suns.
Yeah. And let me tell you something, okay? So that people don't get upset. yes, the film has an agenda. I'm not. My problem.
Wait, it does.
Yeah, you got to look for it.
Dig deep.
You got to search the message boards.
It's like an onion. It's got layers.
Yeah, you got to search the message boards and see, and pick up on things. Watch the DVD commentary, and then maybe watch it a couple more times. You'll pick up on the subtlety that Jack was talking about at the beginning of the agenda. But my problem isn't the agenda. Let me rephrase that. My problem isn't the theme of the agenda. Okay, my problem is the fisting that I received by the agenda. Okay, let me give you an example so that it doesn't matter if I'm for the agenda or not. I don't like that. Yeah. I'm a Christian. One of the worst horror books that I've ever read in my entire life is a Christian horror book written by the Stephen King of Christian horror.
Frank Peretti.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't.
Which one? Which book was it, man?
It's by Decker and Peretti. It's called House. I wasn't going to.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was going to say it, man. I bet you that's what it was.
Decker, what?
Ted Decker, is that his name?
I don't know.
And Frank
I know Frank Peretti. It's called House.
Wait, who's the Stephen King of Christian horror?
Peretti, I believe.
Yeah, Frank Peretti. He wrote.
Frank Peretti.
Yeah, he wrote a book.
This Present Darkness, Piercing the Darkness. Yeah.
Piercing the Darkness.
A bunch of others.
Yeah, good writer. I mean,
now fact, I don't know who
picked up that book, by the way.
I don't know. I know House is a movie though. Which is the book I'm referring to. Couldn't stand this movie, and one of the reasons, the book, and one of the reasons why I couldn't stand it is because of the agenda they were pushing. One that I believe in, but I do not like that. That was my problem. One of the big problems I had with this movie is it was so in your face that, regardless of, I don't care if it's something that I'm behind or not. I
saw a review of this movie that said when a movie is pushing the agenda harder than the story, the movie cares less about you and more about their agenda.
Yeah.
I feel like Blumhouse is pandering. This is
no. This was a cash grab for Blumhouse. This was take the name Black Christmas and put it on a Christmas themed movie, because if we call it, Deck the Halls, nobody's going to go see it. But if we call it Black Christmas, idiots like us are doing a podcast about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had sworn never to see this movie when it came out, by the way, because I knew what it was about. I swore never. And before we go further, I had to watch this movie. I had limited time this week, so we had done Final Guys. And I said, I got enough time now. I got to watch this, and I got to get up at like 5:30 in the morning and go to work. The only way I could watch this movie was to buy it via streaming on Amazon for $15.
Yes.
So did Jeremiah.
I had to get HBO. I had a choice. I could either watch it by subscribing for a month to HBO, and I'm like, well, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to watch as many things as I can. Or I could buy it for $14.99, and I'm thinking, that's not even a question. Like, I'm going with the HBO thing. But no matter what, I had to invest money, man.
Dude, I was sitting there. My wife like, just do it. She goes, Chad invited you on the show. You should just do it. And I'm like, all right.
Good wife.
Yeah, so here's what happens. The day after, I go to Redbox to get something, and there it is for $1.70.
Oh, no.
Blu-ray.
Oh, man.
I'm standing outside an Acme supermarket in front of Redbox, and I just go loud enough for anyone to hear me. Fucking Lutsky.
I'm buying another one of your books, Hunter.
Yeah, just for doing that.
Guys, I don't want to downplay the impact of having to spend money on this piece of garbage. But let's look at this from my perspective.
Yeah.
Chad, you piece of crap. Son of a bitch. I have now seen this movie twice. And that's worse. I'm watching this friggin' movie going, why am I doing why don't I just go off of memory? I gotta, and man, let me tell you something. The second time around, just as bad as the first.
Is it worse?
It might be worse.
Yeah.
Because you know it's coming.
You know what it is? There's just certain things that you focus in. You're like, oh, that's right. I really hated this. Oh God, this part really pisses me off.
Yeah.
Oh, another jump scare with a big music cue. Thank you.
What pissed me off about this movie? Okay, this movie is all about how terrible straight males are. I can't even say white males because
no, it's
actually yes,
you can. It was in the beginning.
You can. I'm sorry, yes, you can because there's an African American dude who is
Urkel
kind of
guy.
Nice. Any guy who is not a son of a bitch, is possibly gay. Yeah, because like the dude who's boyfriends with the one girl, it took me the whole movie to realize that he was the boyfriend and not the gay friend.
I thought he was gay.
Yeah. And then the other guy from who lent his DJ equipment, who was into Imogene Poots, I kept going, oh, he is. And even my wife was like, she's like, no woman would even give him the time of day because
the Cosby sweater ain't doing him any favor.
Yeah, she would think that guy is really big into the D.
When he's like, want to try my barbecue sauce? She's like, no thanks.
So I mean, the good thing is I watched this with a woman, two women, one who is, my wife, contemporary, and then my daughter, who was the same age as these asshats that populate this movie. And I just kept going to her and I'm going, do you guys say this or think this? And she's like, no. And I mean, and she is her friends and her boyfriends and they are all pansexuals and they're transgender and there's non-binary. It's like they have a million different. I'm like, people died face down in the muck in Vietnam to not have fucking labels. I'd like to pull out the Big Lebowski on her every now and then. I said, you guys have just brought a million labels back in. But even with this diverse cast of friends that she has, she goes, this is unacceptable. This would this doesn't exist in real life. And I hope she's right. And I mean, we are in New York where you think these morons would exist, like populate like gremlins after midnight. But maybe not. Maybe this is just some fucking bizarre agenda being pushed by Hollywood. That this movie sucks on so many levels. Oh my God, I just want to just murder this movie. Can I make this movie alive so I can murder it?
I'm from Fairfield County, Connecticut, the capital of white douchey guys in prep schools.
And you're also the capital of Karens. Karens came out of a pod from
and I'm watching this movie going, oh, dude. Boy, this really isn't fair to white douchey guys in prep school. I think you just really got to lighten up on these guys a little bit.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah, even with the signing of the petition, the black girl is standing outside that thing. She's like, "Will you sign to the white guy that comes out?" He's like, "Get out of my face." Black dude comes by. He's like, "I'd love to sign your petition."
Oh, God, that pissed me off.
Yeah.
First of all, she was pretty hot. Any guy would sign that
you
petition.
You don't want to get rid of the white supremacist patriarchy, heteronormative. I'm like, oh my gosh, stop! Like all of the catchwords are just flying. And
it was like they're writing a resume and looking for the keyword catcher.
Yeah,
just like, we got to make sure we get all these in.
This was like a massive signal. Like if oh my gosh, if this crowd of people, right, with beliefs like this, right, if they had a bat signal. And it was this hyper-powered LED bat signal, man, that's like blinding, kind of like the artificial sun. That if they were able to somehow turn it towards your eyeballs so that it's like frying your eyes, this is the movie, dude.
Yeah,
that's what this is. It's like, it's like, do you see the signal? Do you see it now? And I like how you described it, man. Like it's almost like being fisted down the throat and a little bit up the,
both ways.
Both ways
colonoscopy and an endoscopy.
If there was any question whether this was purposely like made for an agenda, this thing that I read today tells me everything I needed to know about the woman, the writer and director who created this. Apparently, originally she pitched to Blumhouse that she wanted to do a remake of I Spit on Your Grave.
Oh my God.
Not even having seen the movie before. She hadn't seen it.
Come on.
So she just knew apparently, a feminist revenge flick or whatever. So instead they offered her, because she hadn't even seen it, they offered her to do Black Christmas. So she just turned that into her,
it's like one of the Die Hard movies. I think the one with Samuel L. Jackson.
3, I think.
So they had, from the story I heard was that was going to be a movie called Simon Says, and then some studio executive looked at it and was, well, you know what? If you make this John McClane and we call this a Die Hard movie, we're going to make way more money than if we call this Simon Says and have somebody else.
Right.
So they took a script, modified it, and turned it into a Die Hard movie.
Yeah.
That's what you got going here.
They should have taken this script and put it in a mulcher.
Did you guys notice the obvious steal from Exorcist 3?
Oh, the jump scare.
Yeah.
Oh,
my God.
Yeah, that was. Oh, and by the way, this has no bearing on any Black Christmas movie because this becomes a supernatural movie.
Yeah.
Which is so irritating and stupid. So even if you took all the woke garbage aside, just throw that away. This is a shit movie. Yeah. It's dumb. The dialogue is dumb. Most of the acting is ridiculous.
When the two girls are in the car and they figure out the supernatural thing, Imogen Poots is like saying, well, I think that the bust is possessed by the Confederate guy, whatever.
Because it's crying tears.
Whatever. It reminded me of Freddy versus Jason when the one guy is like, maybe Freddy is using Jason to put fear back in the kids so that he can reconstitute. It's one of my favorite scenes because it's hilarious. I'm like, how the hell would you know that?
Right.
Speaking of the
you're onto something. Yeah.
Speaking of those black tears, I also read, because I hunted down some trivia about this thing. I read that the black goo that the fraternity brothers bled is meant to represent literal toxic masculinity and how it affects men and changes them from humans to monsters.
Can I get a billboard to just put a big F and a U on there and then just put this picture of the movie on there?
The supernatural thing actually harms this movie as far as that message goes, because it almost lets the guys off the hook. Yeah, that there's a supernatural reason.
Them.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's the alpha toxic male that's controlling them. So I don't know.
And the mere fact that they were even going after classics, man. Like, I mean, they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna go after Homer, that bastard. Like, why?
Well, yeah,
they're going after all the classics, and I'm thinking like it's probably just it's maybe even a subtle cue that they're going after classics even within the genre. And that there's no they're not my classics. Remember that's what she said. She goes, "Whose classics? They're not mine."
Yeah. And I kind of agree with that though.
Oh, I'm a classicist.
I kind of agree with that because sometimes you can't. Like when I went to school, I didn't read my first like novel until I was like 23 or 24, and I blame a lot of that to do with. I mean, I was busy doing other stuff, bands and skating and stuff. But the fact that they were always having us read stuff that I couldn't relate to and I had zero interest in, while other schools were reading like The Hobbit and Poe and stuff like that. We had to read like All Is Quiet on the Western Front,
here's
Romeo and Juliet.
I think that's a good thing because here you have and this speaks to this movie. You have a generation who grew up with access to everything, but channels for just the shit you like. And so they just find their zone and they stay on it. Where when we grew up, you had 7 channels to watch and you watched whatever you could and you were exposed to everything. And you know what?
You got a point. Yeah.
It's good to get out of your comfort zone and get exposed to things. And just because you don't like it or makes you feel uncomfortable, who cares? It's history. You can't rewrite it. It's already there. But there's a whole generation of friggin' domestic terrorists who want to tear down history and just forget it or rewrite it or whatever. They tear down statues and everything, and it's
I don't agree with any of that.
It's ridiculous.
My thing is that a book about war that I don't know anything about, and a book about falling in love when I'm 14 and I have zero idea what that. I just want to see boobs in a magazine,
Yeah,
and
me
so
too.
I'm taking these two things where the prose is dense. And I'm thinking for years, if that's reading, I don't want anything to do with that. There's no escapism for me in these. So I mean, you raise great points, but that's my thing is that I not to say that people shouldn't read, like we as writers should be reading more than just horror, it makes us better writers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got to I actually consider this movie a classic then, because you mentioned The Hobbit, and at the end of this movie, there is a Lord of the Rings like battle.
It's like 300, man. That's like straight up classic.
You messed with the wrong girls,
like,
and then there's like the charge of Rohan.
Oh my god, that battle scene!
Dude,
you messed with the wrong.
I was watching it with my wife, and I watched the original yesterday. She saw part of it, I think the phone call, and she's like, "I'm going out here to paint." And I was like, "Okay, you're gonna miss some good movie." So she comes in halfway through the remake, and she's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "I don't know. I'm half paying attention. I'm so mad right now." And I'm like, got my laptop open and I'm taking notes. And she watched it, and it got to that part.
You took notes. You took notes.
All my notes just said this.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But when you said that, I almost spit my coffee out. I was like, I'm normally the note taker, and on this one, dude, I turned off the Alpha Smart. I'm like, heck no.
No, I took some notes.
Yeah. You talk about your notes. I'm going to the bathroom.
That battle scene, my wife and I, we were both just laughing. We couldn't believe, and then all the one-liners, suck and the when she raises the thing and she's all, "Will never be broken."
Oh,
and it was just,
that was the most painful line in the whole movie.
Dude, it really was, man. Actually, I think the most painful one was somehow a dozen girls snuck into a room where there's 15 dudes or whatever, and nobody knows that they're there with the bow drawn.
Yeah.
Don't even see them come in there, just standing right there. And then she's like, "You messed with the wrong sisters." And I was like, "Oh, this just went next level garbage. This went from hot garbage to nuclear steaming."
If it was so crazy, man. I was thinking, I'm like, if I want to be bombarded with propaganda, you know what I mean? I'm gonna watch Sesame Street, or I'm gonna watch Davy and Goliath, or something like that. And that's what I'm gonna do. But to watch this, and I thought, okay, it was bad enough, but at the end of it, I thought it was interesting. Two things. Number one, where the main character, Riley, she looks to the people and she goes, "You were right. I should have been fighting the whole time," which is playing into this idea that, you've been wrong this whole time about the agenda, and you haven't been doing your part, and now you're here with the discipline lashing yourself. So that's the first thing. And but what was conflicting about it, and you mentioned something about there's conflicts in the movie, in fact, with some of the agenda. And you got to wonder if either she knew it, the writer or the director and all this, if they knew it or if they complained about it. You'd like to almost see behind the curtain a little bit. But the idea that in the end, Riley is a white woman centering herself between a black woman and a black man. And it's centered. And so for people who know the language, you say, you're centering yourself actually in a black space. And so I thought that was just optically bizarre. And then I thought it was interesting, like you said earlier, Chad, about Camille Paglia, when they brought her up. And I like a lot of Camille Paglia's stuff. I don't like all of it, but I like a lot of it. And her stuff on writing is really good. I believe she actually writes by hand all of her books. But the scene where they ask, Riley answers the question as to who wrote it and says that it was written by a man. And the answer is no, it wasn't. It was actually written by Camille Paglia. And Camille Paglia has an idea that, that there's this kind of spectrum thing. And she's against the agenda, by the way. She's a critic of the agenda that is in this movie. And so that was an interesting thing with that. And then there was one other one that I had. I'm trying to remember here. Hold on. You can get this thing out. But let's see here. Because there was one more. Oh, the censorship. Yeah, one more here. The censorship was... if you think about it, the whole idea, the people doing the agenda did not factor in the possibility of blowback and the idea that what you're doing to consign that statue to a place, because they were proud, remember, that statue had been removed. And she said, well, it had been taken down from that prominent place and put into this house, and it was out of view of everybody. So whoop-de-doo kind of a thing. What they ended up finding out was that when that happened, it ended up that that action and that image that was consigned and taken out from there had enlivened a bunch of wickedness within people, and they found magic in this totem almost kind of thing, right? And you sit there and you say, that's similar, in fact, to the argument against censorship in general, that when you censor people or you shadow ban people because of these things, it's going to put them into these, for no better choice of terms, into kind of ghettos where that's all they have. They're surrounded in that bubble by other people who've been burned by this. And it's going to aggravate that and even radicalize them. And I thought the fact that that's in there, like I said, that's so conflicting in the film, like, because you have this agenda, but then you also have that kind of tucked in there that a smart observer, a cultural observer would say, well, wait a second, this is exactly the argument against banning people or not allowing free speech for people who have differences of opinion, that you're going to create this group that now they're going to be on further and further on the fringes and identify with those people because they'll have that in common with each other, and it will.
Yeah, they allowed a couple of counter comments in this movie. They were like overwhelmed by the tidal wave of garbage. But you're absolutely right about that. There were a couple of comments that the girl's boyfriend mentioned, like, what did you think they would do if you do that, if you put that out there? But it was, I guess that was their way, Chad, of saying we're presenting both sides.
At the beginning, where you were like, I don't disagree with the message. Women's issues need to be addressed. And Hunter, you've got daughters, so when they're out, you're worried about. And there are some.
Yeah,
there's definitely things that
I have two daughters. One is gay, and one is straight. And
I don't think any of us disagree with, like, yes, there are issues, and there are some really toxic men out there, and things that can be addressed. So go back and watch, like, Silence of the Lambs, and look at the way that they deal with Clarice Starling in a man's world, and the way that they deal with the dynamics of the way Lecter treats her, the way Jack Crawford, and every guy in that movie, and that is just a great. It's a subtlety that runs through the movie that just really, when she gets in the elevator with all the FBI guys, that says so much, and without forcing it down your throat. Yeah. Than this. One other thing, I wanted to go back to the Lord of the Rings battle in the library or whatever. I don't. Jeremiah, I'm sure you've never seen this movie, but maybe I know, Hunter, you have. There's a movie called Waxwork from the 80s. That's got a hilarious battle at the end between like the monsters from the wax museum and these old guys who are like show up at the last second, and they have this hilarious battle. And when I see this, all I can think of is, oh my God, Waxworth did this so much better. Patrick McNee in a wheelchair leading the charge.
Patrick McNee, who is a hero.
I can't. Can you guys think of a worse remake than this one?
No.
Ooh.
I mean, the shot for shot Psycho remake was better than
not as bad as this.
Look, there might be a worse remake, but this is the stupidest.
What about Wicker Man, dude? Wicker Man sucked. That remake,
Nicolas Cage. I'll watch.
Funnier though.
At least has some like redeeming quality with Nicolas Cage.
First of all, the first hour of this movie is boring as hell. Just as a horror movie fan,
the first 20 minutes is pure 100%, with the exception of the murder at the very beginning. The next 20 minutes is 100% setting up the agenda and making sure that it's drilled into your head. There's no reason if this were a book, there's no reason to turn the page. Absolutely no reason. There's no conflict. There's nothing.
No. Technically, when I started watching this, it's when I go to bed. I started watching this, and I'm watching it in bed. So technically, I should have fallen asleep, but I hate watching this and wide awake to the point where it ends. I got to take Klonopin. I'm like, I got to shut myself down because I got work to do in 5 hours from now. I got to go to sleep. And I was so aggravated. Not you, Chad. I was initially pissed at you, but I let that roll. But I just kept thinking, I'm like, this is just, it's an example of a world that is wide open to everybody. And people are so myopic, and it creates crap like this. And it just pissed me off. And I'm like, if anybody is, if a studio said, I'm going to give you $50 million, I want you to write like the sequel to this, just like this, I'd say, go F yourself. I will go on the dole in Ireland and I'll be just fine.
The plot of this movie is a Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode.
Oh, don't, man.
You know,
I'll defend Buffy, dude.
But Buffy would do it better. But like an hour TV show with commercials, possessed college frat.
Yeah.
This is the reason why I started my own fraternity in college.
It would have been great
to counter these guys.
Yeah.
This is how low they stooped. I watched the trailer after I watched the movie.
It gives away the whole movie.
I read some things about what's that?
It gives away the whole movie.
It does.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And that's why I saw people complaining. Not only were they complaining
Jason
about
lost
that,
his mind. Jason Brandt from our podcast. Oh my God.
Yeah, I almost never watch trailers anymore. The last film that got a trailer right is probably Hereditary, because you think it's going to be about something that it's not.
Yeah.
And that person's gone.
And that pissed people off with the actual movie. Man, they were pissed.
So in the trailer, there are scares, and most of the scares aren't in the movie. So like if some girl shuts the door and there's a dude standing there, that's not in the movie. They superimposed or put CGI'd the figure in there.
Yeah.
The most in these, that's just cheap crap that they were trying to do. And then when they take the guy's mask off and he's got the black stuff on him, the first guy that they find in the trailer, when they take the mask off, it's the statue's head.
Yeah, it's the statue's head. Yeah.
And they're like,
I noticed that too.
What the heck?
I noticed that too.
That's all the outtakes and that sucks. Well, but it'll look good in the trailer. You know,
it's unbelievable.
I did like the discount Dr. Doom masks that all the frat guys were wearing.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? Now you're watching that fraternity scene. Like when I started college, we had a couple of high name fraternities, one that a lot of presidents have been part of. And we actually spied on them on one of their rituals. And that shit is real. At least it was in the 80s. Like that stuff they were doing. And that's when I turned to like three of my friends and like, we're starting our own fraternity and F these guys. And we called ourselves Delta Tau Chi after Animal House. And to pledge us meant you had to hang out and drink with us. And within 1 year, we were the biggest fraternity the campus had ever seen of everybody. We had fuckers in wheelchairs, every race, creed, and color, every sexuality.
It was just be great.
Oh, it was amazing. But it was in direct retaliation to that kind of crap that exists. And I don't know if Greek life is still a thing on campuses.
Yeah.
I tend to think it's not, because a lot of campuses I talk about, they don't even have that anymore. But that's toxic. I will tell you that shit
out
is
the window now.
Yeah.
That shit is
you're mixing
toxic.
in power and you're mixing in money, right? Like skull and bone levels.
Yeah.
So there's the skull and bone
epsilon. Go fuck yourselves, guys.
The skull and bone headquarters is like in New Haven.
Yeah.
And I was taking a ghost tour years ago with my nephew when he was younger. And in part, you walk by and they show you like, oh, and this is the like entrance to the Skull and Bones, a real nondescript building. And they talk, all these different presidents and whatever. And my nephew just walks up to the door and starts banging on it and everything. I'm like, what are you doing? They're taking your picture right now. We're gonna go with some database.
Get out of there, man. Get out of there. You're gonna.
These are guys
on the list.
These are guys who are bonded because they had to run around the track with a bagel in their asshole, and when the bagel fell out, the other guy had to eat it, and that made them brothers.
That's an everything bagel.
I watched that shit happen.
I guess what bothered me, I'm acting like there's one thing, but like another thing, right? Just adding to this. This is like a quadruple decker poop sandwich. But like they straw personed the daylight. Yeah, they straw personed the daylights out of everybody on this, right? Like the way that the women were, right? It just treated them like they're fanatical, foaming at the mouth, feminist types, like extreme, like not even mildly. It was no, women are that. And that's what they are. And if you're not part of that, then you are a person who's like, if you're not going to get down and bow, bitch, and be obedient, we're going to kill you.
Yeah.
It's like, holy crap. What is this, dude? But that is how they treated it. And I thought, I agree with you guys. Like, regardless of any cultural and sociological criticisms I may have of the left and stuff, there are serious concerns, right? There are serious concerns to be had on issues pertaining to gender, issues pertaining to equality. This kind of thing does not advance that dial at all,
Right.
because
Nope.
you're strawmanning the daylights out of everybody. You're making it completely fake, and you're scaring everybody away. They're either they're laughing and they're rage watching. There are people who are like, dude, this needs to go away.
It's not going to create a dialogue. It's going to create
division.
I have a wife and a daughter who were both sexually assaulted as teens, and they both thought this movie was stupid and a piece of crap, and didn't represent any of the way they felt at all.
Yeah,
so that tells you something right there.
My wife is the strongest woman that I know, and she has gone through some of the most horrendous stuff of anyone that I know, and
she's married to you.
That whole and that whole thing, just the whole thing, it embarrassed her. She's not down with it, but perfectly said, Jeremiah. And Jack, we do have these issues, but this isn't helping. This is
not the way to handle it.
It's not helping. It's not helping horror fans. It's not helping any social issue.
Yeah, Blumhouse, come on. You make fucking horror movies for $3 million. Just get a good story out. But for every good thing they do lately, it seems to be they have 3 just terrible movies. I don't know what's going on over there.
Yeah, they hit with like Invisible Man, so you cut them slack for like 5 movies. Yeah. And then just when you're like, all right, screw Blumhouse, they'll hit with another one. You're like, oh, they're so great.
Hey man, they did finally give us a worthy Halloween movie.
Yeah.
No.
2018 Halloween?
That movie sucked. Throw that in the garbage.
Okay, well, thanks for listening, everyone. That was
it's over. It's done. It's done, guys.
Garbage. They should have stopped at Halloween 3.
Did anyone notice the that little assembly thing that they put on? I was expecting something different, because twice they're like, but Riley, you can sing. And then they get out there and I'm like, no one's singing.
No one can sing.
Yeah.
Both times I almost turned off the movie and turned on Mean Girls. So I was like,
much better representation.
Much better.
So it's so women to present their to get their voice that have to be whores. What was the message in that thing?
Yeah.
It was
like terrible.
Santa whores. And
well, that was part of the message, because you heard that where they were like, well, just in the argument you mentioned earlier about, when the boyfriend that we all thought was gay, where he's like, well, hey, you guys go up there and you're doing this against all these people in public and indiscriminately, by the way. They didn't even add that they should have had a little asterisk and said indiscriminately in general about frats, not about one frat, frats in general.
Yeah.
And look, they're gonna flip out and stuff. And it's like, oh, dude, it's
when they took that guy that you're talking about and they switched him from being like, oh, this is the good white guy in the movie. This is the one good white guy that everybody gets along with. And then they thought that they were switching it to all of a sudden it's like, okay, there is no good white men.
Because he was drunk.
But you know what? You know what started that whole argument and what got them into that big fight was because he said, we're not all like that.
Right. Yeah. And then he was thrown out of the house.
And she threw him out of the house.
We were supposed to be like, oh, now he's bad too. It's like, no, he's not. He
came back to say sorry.
Speaking the truth.
He came back to say sorry. And that's what he came back to do. And I'm like, dude, this is like beta land over here. But the thing is, the hashtag.
Yeah, no, that guy would not. First of all, he'd been drinking. He got his beer balls, told his hot girlfriend, who was way above his pay grade, what he thought. She threw him out. He ain't coming back to apologize.
Yeah. Well, and
maybe tomorrow.
But
not that night.
There's so many like reasonable discussions to be had about the movie. Like they're touching on things that are real, but they're blowing them so out of proportion. And one of them, for example, was the Me Too moment in the movie where they're both in the car, and it's easy to kind of lose sight of it because you have the conversation that's so bizarre about like, well, it's because it's possessed, and she's like, dang girl, you figured it out, kind of thing. But what it was you want to go to the police. The police aren't going to help us. They didn't believe me when I went in, and I thought about it. Remember, the detail they gave earlier was that there was no evidence of it. There was no proof of this thing, right? That's actually a real quandary. And so you have a real quandary where something could happen to somebody, but there's not proof of that. We, as parents, man, we know. We how many times are kids, upstairs and there's a fight and we can try to get down to the bottom of it. But the problem was we weren't there. We didn't see it. And there's no proof in either direction. And it's a he said, she said problem. This is taken it to an extreme level because you're dealing with rape. And there's a divide on should you believe the claim without evidence? You're going to get bad guys, but you're also going to get a lot of good guys. If you do it to where you say, well, we are going to require evidence, good guys aren't going to get in trouble, but some bad guys aren't going to get in trouble either. That's a real problem. And it's very difficult to deal with. But her answer to it, and she provides an answer. She says they wouldn't believe us because when I went without evidence, they didn't believe me. Why would they believe that we weren't involved in that? I'm thinking, because there's freaking bows and arrows and guys in outfits with masks and dead women all over the freaking place. Like, it's not even remotely a reasonable comparison. I said, you just took a great opportunity. Maybe the situation could warrant a reasonable discussion, but you just blew it out of the water with ridiculous details. And it's not even believable. It makes a joke out of it.
Oh, well, you made it supernatural too, which just throw the whole thing out. Who cares at this point? Now it's just stupid beyond
When I watched this the first time and it went supernatural, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, oh my God.
This isn't Black Christmas.
It had nothing to do with the original movie
so
far. And then we'll go, wait, it's supernatural? Then, like I said, that classic, they figure out the supernatural thing in the car. And now I'm crying, laughing. Oh,
we talked a minute ago about about how this is could cause division and this kind of thing, and you've got this extreme and this extreme, and that's all there is. And one thing that could be said too could be considered kind of dangerous is that all of these like date rape guys or murdering guys or whatever, they're wearing it on their sleeves. Like when you look at them, it's like, oh, he's a douche, he's a douche, he's a douche. That's not these guys that are going out and doing these things at parties and doing the stuff that insulting girls. They're not wearing it on their sleeves. Maybe some of them are, but in the movie, you know them. You know, it's like I've always told my kids about stuff like this, and about you if they're going out with some I've got my daughter has a kid, 2 kids, and sometimes I get kind of like, where are they? Who are you leaving them with? Because if they're going to get like messed with, you're not going to know about it. They're not going to wear a sign around their neck and say, hi, I'm a molester, and when I'm babysitting, I'm going to be.
Your mic is starting to fade again. There you go.
There you go.
Well, hopefully you caught that. But yeah, I
thought we did.
It was getting out of control. it was getting progressively louder. And I was like, oh no.
We all are giving this an E, I guess.
Dude, no doubt.
Is E the lowest you can give it?
E minus.
I'd like to see an extended director's cut just to see if we're missing out on what
Jack. All right, if you do,
to see what the movie's really about.
You. Yeah. If I watch it with you and we have a bottle of bourbon.
Actually, that would be. I think my mistake is I didn't watch this with you. If we watched this together, we would have been throwing stuff at the TV and laughing our asses off.
There was no redeemable quality.
But
no, Chad, that's why I'm like, I would never normally give an E. You know what I mean? Like, that's pretty bad. On IMDb, it's like a 3.5 or something like that, or 3. And I told my 3.3. I told my kids it was 1.5. But then I thought about it more, and I'm like, no, it's not. It's not 1.5.
It's not even so bad. It's good. It's just
there's no redeemable quality. There's nothing in there that's like, oh, dude, that's really really great. Even like, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Carrie Elwes.
Oh, he's terrible.
I like him as an actor.
I think he's one of the worst actors that ever came down the pike.
I liked him on Psych and stuff.
He's great on Psych, and he's great in Princess Bride. Okay, so those two things, right? Limiting. You and me are Psych guys, so we get it.
We're Psych guys. Yeah. So like, I like him in that. My kids were like, "That's Despero," you know what I mean? So I'm like, "Yeah, that's Despero right there." And so I like Despero. That's really what it is. So when I saw him in the movie, I'm thinking like, oh well, maybe that's a redeeming, quality of this. And I thought, you win some and you lose some. And this guy it was terrible. It was just so bad. And at the end, you know, if you break it, you know, we're inextricably linked together. And if you shatter it, we're you know, all apart. And she's like, basically, I don't care kind of thing. And he's like, no. And I was waiting for water to come down. Like, you know, you can't do that on television. And a mix of you can't do that on television with Wizard of Oz. And he starts, you know, fading away into the gown. But I'm just like, man, this is so bad. And I was waiting and waiting for what is going to redeem this in any way for me. And I thought by the end of it, I'm like, nothing.
No,
nothing.
There's no redeeming quality.
To circle back to the beginning, the overdressed Christmas decorated streets.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Who has the money to do this?
What was the purpose of the shovel?
The shovel.
Oh, random crap.
She grabbed a shovel out of the house. They took off. Yeah. She took it with her in the truck. Then she walked on the street, dragging behind. And then that was the end of the shovel.
The Home Alone callback. I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah, Home Alone.
I don't know.
Yeah. By the way, those girls that went in there, I told my wife when we were watching it, when the battle for Mordor, whatever you want to call it, I don't know the names of the
You shall not pass.
Yeah. When the battle happened at the end, I said, those guys have like cricket bats. Every one of those girls would be on the ground bleeding.
They'd be done.
Dead.
They're all like lacrosse players.
Their brains would be hanging out of their ears.
Somehow the one chick is taking guys out left and right using just swinging a bow. Like a thin.
Yeah. It was a G.I. Jane moment, dude. And I don't mean to dog anybody, but I'm kind of thinking like the idea of the Navy SEALs and like what she's doing and all that. And I'm like, well, we have a little bit of hindsight, and there's like no ladies who've ever made it into the Navy SEALs. So there's a lot of dudes in there, and the idea that that's real. And I'm like, this is kind of like this, but there's a lot of G.I. Janes, and they're going up against these guys who are, you know, toxic masculinity. It comes along, by the way, with some of this bravado and machismo and all of this stuff, strength, right? And all of that. And I'm thinking, these guys, you have cricket bats. Yeah, they got cricket bats. They're demonically possessed, right? So they have magical powers. And yet somehow, man, it's like you messed with the wrong ladies. And I just thought, my kids were like, Papa, this is girl power. Like, this is all that is. It's not. It's not.
And if you want to go back to anything. You want to go back to a great girl power moment? Speaking of Lord of the Rings, when Éowyn slays the guy in the Battle of Gondor, where she's like, "I am no man," and stabs him. Yeah. I never forget when I was 15-year-old reading that. I thought that moment was awesome. Yeah. That's a great girl power moment there. Also,
or the chicken Game of Thrones, which she does that flip and sticks a knife in dude.
Yeah.
I can't remember her name, but I mean, there's plenty of movies that have really powerful, like great lead, strong, you know, women characters. Revenge that came out a year or two ago. I mean, that's like a, you know, kind of a exploitation kind of movie, but you know, she was strong, and there's plenty out there. But I will say this about the movie, just so that, you know, I hope that Sophia doesn't ever hear this. Because I'm not trying to none of us are trying to personally.
We're the only ones. We're the only ones who've ever said anything like this.
Yeah.
Just the first. Like, I thought everybody loved it.
Yeah, but we're kind of relentless. There was, you know, I mean, it's not like it was badly edited, you know, or the sound effects were bad or anything like that. I did think
Good key grip.
I did think that the
gaffer did a hell of a job.
I did think that the whole snow angel thing at the beginning, and then how the composition of it. Yeah, I thought it was cool, especially when it slid over and you've got black, and I was like, oh, they're going to put Black Christmas right there, and they didn't.
They didn't, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, your mic's going again. Oh. So I just want to give a PSA. So I'm giving a PSA to guys who are of a certain younger age. So, Chad, you mentioned before how, like, you know, these overtly asshole guys towards women, in real life, they're not that overt. They're like Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're charming and they do their shit on the DL. In the 80s, when there were guys like this who would either denigrate women or try to do things to women, like, you know, when they were drunk, take advantage of them. You know what we did? We beat the living shit out of them when they least expected it and let them know why it happened. And we would usually do it as a group, and it felt really good. We self-policed these pieces of garbage. I have to say, from my experience with now I have 2 women who are my daughters, who are 23 and 21. I have seen the detritus that has washed on our shores with penises, and they have all, with the exception of one, been pieces of fucking garbage who deserve everything they get.
The detrituses of penises is going to be a double feature with
detrituses
the
of
Trailer
penises.
Park Coven.
Yeah, right.
Because
exactly. Yeah.
There has been a shift where, and I don't know what has caused this, where there are guys, a whole generation, who feel you can bully women and be a total shitheel to them at any time, whether to their face or on social media, and it's cool. And this did not exist when we were younger, Jack. Did you know any guys who did crap like this and we bullied each other? Absolutely. But women were sacrosanct. It was, don't fuck with them, because
the place you saw was like the abusive husband, the abusive boyfriend. There was that,
but in college,
and
we policed this shit. We literally knocked the brains out of guys who did stuff like this.
Yeah. One of my earliest memories, man, in the 80s is it was a stormy night, man, and we're out in a farmhouse in Pennsylvania, and a little girl comes beating on the door like 11 o'clock at night, screaming and crying, and we all wake up, man. We go downstairs to our neighbor. It's the girl that lived next door. She's really young, and said that, my mommy's getting beat up, my dad's drunk. And I saw my dad walk over there, man, in the rain, and he goes, "I'll be back, guys." And he walked over there, bro. That dude was, he had a knife, waving at my dad. He's drunk, waving at my dad, and my dad told him, he's like, "Dude, you better put that away." He's like, "I'll kill you with your own knife." He's like, "You hit your wife again, dude." He's like, "You're done." He's like, "If I find out you've been drinking, if I find out you've been hitting your wife, dude, you are toast." And the thing is that I think maybe it's that, like, because like this kind of thing, that because it strawmans it and makes it extreme, that it sums up all masculinity with toxic masculinity. And it's a masculine thing to take on those dudes that are being rough toward the girls,
right?
And are treating girls like crap. That's a masculine thing for men to rise up and say, "Dude, you better check yourself, bro, because we got a bunch of dudes here. We're gonna take you down, champ." And that's a masculine thing. That's not toxic, and it's respect, and it's one of those. It's just a weird thing, man. And it's like if people, because we've strawman the daylights out of it, that people feel like to have that impulse at all, that drive. Even the guy in the film that said you're lumping in everybody, he's not being a wuss about that. That guy's that's a genuinely appropriately masculine and reasonable response to the situation, to say not all dudes are like that.
That's exactly right.
But yet he got shoved out the door. And
I see that happening less now than it happened 30 years ago. I absolutely see it happening less. There's been a complete shift, and maybe I'm going to give this movie a bit of props. I don't know. Maybe this is a reaction to that change in male culture. And maybe it's a necessary thing. And there's an audience for this, absolutely, because both of my daughters have been freaking harassed by guys, which would never. My sister was not harassed by guys. They were harassed by guys from the moment they grew like half a boob. And it happened all the way through until now. It still does happen every now and then. And I'm looking at it from my view, and maybe this is what they're living through, and maybe this movie does have a purpose, and there's an audience, and there's a reason for it, and I kind of see that. But just, I don't know. As a horror lover, I just want to throw this movie out of the genre into a burning pit of hell, along with every guy except one who's ever come into my house sniffing around my daughters.
Yeah. Adding to what you were saying, just coupling with it, last thing I'll say about it is that when you said maybe this is a reaction to it, that might actually make a little bit of sense out of some of the conflicting things that are in there. And one of those being, for example, something that in the straw man foaming at the mouth world, that is condemned and is seen as a terrible thing, is opening the door and holding it for somebody. But yet the guy that was in the coffee shop who talked to the girl, she's looking at him, she walks out and she sees him, and he opens the door and he's holding the door as people are coming in, and he's kind of backing up and letting them walk out, and backing up and letting them, they're coming in and stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought that's a signal that in the foaming at the mouth world is like, what, don't you think we can hold our own doors? But yet that was seen and framed in the movie in a way that wasn't a negative thing. In fact, that was something about him that made him respectable.
At least he didn't ask permission if he could open the door for her.
Remember A Bronx Tale when they have the door test where you lock the door, you go around, and if the girl reaches over and unlocks it, she's a keeper. If not, you dump her right there. Holding a door for a girl is like their lock test for us.
Yeah.
Like, there's just certain things. You got to be a gentleman. You know, I mean, there's litmus tests that
I still do it. It's been 33 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't change. But that's when you're raised right as a gentleman.
And if they get mad at you, it's kind of, you know, God's way of allowing you to know that, you know, not everybody's a good fit for you. It's like,
That's true.
You're really mad about that?
Exactly.
Okay, well, you know, there's 7 billion people on the planet by the figures. There's a lot of ladies out there.
I shall find another.
Yeah, if I find another, I'll hold the door for them.
So Jeremiah,
yeah.
In wrapping this up, I went into Illumination Cave.
Yeah,
and
yeah, you did.
I got no comedic moral, man. There's nothing funny about this. It made me sad and I want to cry.
And you have 3 people who want to kill you.
Yes.
Yeah, so you better hide. Get in that cave.
Oh man, $15. I can't imagine a movie that you would regret less than this on spending $15.
I have never spent even half that on a movie.
Yeah.
To stream. So I thank you for this experience.
I never would have
for this fisting of my bank account.
Yeah, man. Oh,
I am. I'm going to. I think because of NaNoWriMo and the other stuff that I've been having to write and everything, I'm reading slower than apparently Jack is. I'm still reading Slash.
I like how you're the low bar, Jack.
Me on a Kindle is the slowest thing you'll ever get.
I'm still reading Slash, but I think I'm like 200 and dude, I freaking love that book.
Oh, you're almost there.
I'm kind of glad that I'm reading it slow because I'm savoring it, and I'll definitely be getting something else. So I know you won't get $15 out of it. But
you're going to discover what the Wraith is that I didn't know till I wrote it.
Hey, Chad.
The whole time I'm going, I don't know what the fuck this thing's going to be.
Chad, in my defense, I read Creature relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I just finished Clown in a Cornfield pretty quickly. It's the Kindle that really kills me. If I read a Kindle, it takes me forever.
And I kind of, I do remember you saying that because recently I sent Hunter a book for Kindle, and I sent Jason one too. And I thought, I knew that you read sometimes, but I didn't. I was like, if I send this to him, he's probably not going to read it anyway. But I would be more than happy to send you a book to read if you wanted to take a year and put it on your Kindle and read a word a day.
Look, Jack's looking at you like a deer in headlights. He doesn't even know what to say right now.
But I want to read the actual book.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Chad captured my soul in the book I read of his. So for that, I like the fact that I got to know you as a person, kind of, because we're not holding hands or digging in the dirt and planting fucking pot together. But I love that I got to know you that first. And then I read your book that just moved me. I mean, almost brought me to tears at a beach on a 80-degree day when I should be nothing but happy. So the fact that you did that to me it's just profound. So literally, I'm a Lutskyite. What are you going to call your fans? Like I call mine Hunter's Hellions. You got to come up with a name for your readers.
I don't know. I don't even like using fans because I always feel so pretentious.
I say readers too. I hate fans.
Yeah.
I don't even have fans in my family. So, but yeah, you gotta come up with a name like the Lutsky's Ludofisks, that fish that they eat in freaking Norway or something.
Lutsky's losers.
What?
Yeah, that'll get me more.
I'm just brainstorming alliteration.
I love it, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that works. I like that.
Yeah, man.
Luddites. All right, man. Well, Jeremiah, do you have a comedic moral that you somehow managed to between these two movies?
I watched the movie. I don't know. Yeah. The movie is a comedic moral in and of itself. No. You know, I don't know, man. You know, if I was I did. I thought about a couple things, but I'll keep it to one. You know, if I was enjoying a pleasant evening and I'm getting ready to go to some kind of, you know, Thanksgiving dinner with a hot chick, And as I'm walking there, and I've got champagne and chocolate and all those other things, and I see her walking as though she recently acquired a peg leg, and she's carrying a snow shovel, and she's looking all creepy like Frankenstein, saying, "You really want to help me?" That if I go to where she wants me to help, and I see a cult of dudes coming out looking all demonic and crap, that I'm gonna think of something better than, "I want you to suck a fat fart because you just got Zeta'd." Because you're gonna die, dude, or you're gonna end up being incorporated into the freaking cult. But either way, dude, there were many signals, and I would only hope that I would have caught at least one of the 1,000 signals that were going off at that time to book it, dude. Because that peg leg chick ain't worth it. That's it.
Smart.
That's the lessons, dude. I think that may in fact be the greatest lesson that I could come up with having watched this movie.
All right, man. Well,
yeah.
I want to thank Jack and Hunter for coming on here and being so good sports, man, for this horrible movie. I put Jason through Amityville not knowing how bad that was going to be.
That was rougher than we had one movie. You put
hilarious.
Jason through 12. That was awesome.
But to be fair, I did hold his hand the whole way. I watched him too. These horrible movies when I only really liked the first one, and it was,
Jeremiah, as the newbie, you're getting to see the other side of the horror fan, where we watch a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah,
we do.
And some bad stuff we watch, we enjoy.
And
other bad
like
stuff we
Black
hate.
Christmas. But I'm still glad I went through it, man. I've always told Chad, because when we started Paleo Cheese originally, right, the very first, the advent of what we do now, videos a long time ago. When we did that, we would intentionally watch movies that were not very good, right?
Yeah, right.
And we would do
they're fun to crap on.
Yeah, they're fun to crap on. They were fun to watch and stuff like this. And this may have not been a pleasure. In fact, it was the opposite of that. In the moment, right? Watching it, there wasn't any kind of joy coming from that. But this with you guys, and I used to be able to always say, Chad, I'll be able to go through anything, man, as long as I can go through it with you, buddy. And guys, this one, I love you, Chad, but it really did require Hunter and Jack being here because this was really bad.
Watching this movie alone was like a garden hose through your penis hole. But I will say, like every production company, like Blumhouse, sometimes they catch lightning in a bottle. Sometimes they get a turd in a diaper. This is the latter, because this is just there's no reason to ever watch this movie.
In a Diva Cup.
In a Diva Cup, exactly. I said to my wife, I said, "Hey, what's a Diva Cup? And would you just shove that up your cooter in front of your friend?" She's like, "No."
We hated this movie, but we talked about it longer than the first one.
Yeah,
so it's more
because
fun
the
to
first
talk
one's a classic and doesn't need to be talked about.
But it's like just sports radio. It's more
Yeah.
fun to talk about your baseball team when they suck
That's why everyone talks about
than
it.
when they're good.
Yeah, it's easier to bitch than praise, I guess, because that's what we've been doing.
That's why Detroit Talk Radio is so good. The Lions, it's like, oh yeah, you're gonna tune into that, and it's like, dude, it's a dumpster fire every year. Of course,
You got the Red Wings though, so at least you
That's true. Yeah, and Tigers ain't half bad.
All right, go check out Monster Men podcast, the Final Guys podcast, and buy Hunter's books.
Yeah,
and
Chad.
Yeah.
You know what? Buy an extra one for me, because you can't, or just send me $14.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah,
for my time.
But yeah, guys, thanks.
Actually, I'll take one of your books, Chad.
Okay, thanks for coming on, guys. And
thanks, man.
And this is actually the first time too that we've ever had a guest back.
Yes,
before, and they were both on.
They're both on. Yeah. There's like so many firsts with this dude.
We'll do this again on Monster Men. We'll have you guys on.
Yeah, there we go.
You're gonna torture us, aren't you?
You're gonna pick something real wicked, dude. No,
you're gonna make us watch that first Trump-Biden debate.
No, we're gonna break out blood-sucking freaks. So get ready.
Oh yeah,
I'm down. Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Yes. Until next time, guys. It's awesome.
Bye, brothers.
Bye-bye.
Every person's story has something to teach us. How others view life, how obstacles are overcome, how joy is felt, how fears are faced, how love is expressed. The Matters of Faith podcast explores individual stories of people's lives and how faith plays a part. It may not be your story, but it may help shape yours.
The Matters of Faith podcast with Jay Wilburn is on Project Entertainment Network.